today's business update, we'll be talking about Elon's surprisingly small home. Why he chose to buy a tiny house compared to what billionaires own, a large mansion. We'll talk about that. Next, we'll be talking also in related to Elon Musk's EV vehicle or the Tesla vehicles. It's now that engineers in his company has concerns with regards to the self-driving capabilities of their vehicles now. Obviously, Tesla has been making a lot of headway in terms of their electric vehicle push for electric vehicles, as well as its tremendous capability of a lot of autopilot assist. But can you consider itself fully autonomous with what Mr. Elon Musk is promoting? Talk about that. Next is we have Amazon's concerns. We have Amazon concerns, not Amazon concerns, regarding that sellers in their platform are going to as much as offering refunds for having bad reviews in their products. So this is what companies go to extreme lengths to be able to get the attention of their customers, because obviously a bad review could be detrimental to their business model here. And finally, again, an update on Blizzard's situation here now with the recent court case that's being levied upon them. Now, it's affecting their bottom line. Now, has that got to do with those two, or is it totally different in terms of the company has lost half of its monthly active users? So what's going on there? So will this continue to spiral and potentially harming the company Blizzard or even Activision, the parent company themselves? So let's get started. So as mentioned, so it would be interesting, right, to see that Elon Musk, one of the most, you know, greatest minds of our generation, one of the most richest person in the world, is living surprisingly in a very modest home, which is reportedly, I think, a tiny home costs around $50,000. So surprising to see that. So let's take a closer look here. So it looks something like this. So you can see it's pretty small for his gargantuan stature. And according to the businessinsider.com, it states that Elon Musk reportedly lives in a $50,000 prefab tiny home that already has 100,000 unit waiting list. So we'll take a closer look, and you can see here it's pretty interesting, right? So one would think it's a lifestyle choice to have a tiny home like this one, right? So let's see here. So you can see here, I think it's 20 by 20. I think that's the dimension here. So let's see. So this is what it looks like. So you can see it's pretty small, right? But it has all the basic amenities that one would consider here in terms of having a small living room, bedroom, we call this kitchen, and a bathroom. So obviously, if you're living by yourself, it's more than plenty. And one of the interesting here is how they construct this home. So it's like it's a foldable home of sorts. So makes it easy to construct, transport, and erect in any location that you so desire. Anyway, so obviously tiny houses has been, become popular with rising cost of houses, especially on in big cities here. Now, what's interesting here, obviously, it caught my attention with obviously anything that's attached to Elon Musk's name. People are curious as to why would he choose this particular living setup. Now, obviously, he's living now in Texas regarding his venture to space with SpaceX. So, does it make sense for him to live in a modest house, make it more convenient to travel to and from his house to where his company is? So this got me interested to look at it closely. So if you see here, it's nothing too spectacular, but it gets the job done, as I mentioned. So there were rumors that one of the buyers was Mr. Musk, but there's no confirmation mentioned here. But obviously this got people interested as to why would he be interested, what the product is all about. So let's take a closer look here. Okay. So as you can see here, it's not that big in terms of its size. Let's see. But in terms of being able to transport it with ease, so you can see here with the truck trailer, so you could just easily transport it to any point of location, in the United States here. Now, what's interesting here is that they mentioned in the article that if you're interested to combine different units, so you can accommodate more people. In this case, let's say you have a family, maybe you can have two units attached together or on top or laid on top of each other. So you can see here the dining room is attached closely to the kitchen itself, and you can see here it's pretty much complete by the time you enter. So it's like a studio unit, but much better than what some of our uh, real estate companies are offering here in our country. But you can see it's much bigger, so it's much more spacious and it's much more inviting. Now obviously they made partitions to make distinction from one side of the room to the other side here. Now obviously, would you be interested to purchase a home here? Obviously, the technology or how they fabricate or make the homes is, I think, the important aspect, especially for provincial area or far-flung place in the rural area. So to make it easier for construction, which I think is the key point here. So making it affordable, easy to construct, and reliable would be the determining factor whether this company or the company Boxable will be successful in the long run. Now, there has been a lot of reports in terms of high demands for their product. So let's see here. I think they have another shot here. Okay, where was it? Yeah. So you can see here, right? So can easily be transported by your own vehicle if you so choose to do that. But obviously, erecting it, you need manpower to do that. I think they have a closure. So you can see here, one of the interesting here is you can put one unit on top of the other, so you can have a multi-story unit. Obviously, you have the common area on the first floor, and then sleeping quarters on the second floor there. So here's a better look at the what do you call this, of the interior here. So it's very pretty, mundane. It's a square shaped area where you put it all the basic necessities there, from the living room, dining room, kitchen, bedroom, and so forth. Now obviously, if you're comfortable with living a simple life, obviously you have the basic amenities, then go for it. And you can see here also it's easily foldable. Then obviously they mount it securely with the foundation so that it doesn't fly away in case there's a hurricane or a thunderstorm in your area here, especially if your area is frequented by twisters. Okay, so as mentioned, the dimension here is 19.5 foot by 19.5, so around 20 by 20. So it's not pretty big, but big enough for a single individual. So question here is, would it get other companies to produce this type of production so that you can easily replicate or manufacture it? So depending on the needs, is easy to assemble. In terms of cost, if it's cheaper, how much did they mention, was it 50,000? That's around 2.5 million pesos in our currency. So it's much cheaper than a condominium that we have here in our areas here. And obviously, if you have a plot of land, so you can easily erect it easily here, and it gets delivered to your house, and then you can move in right away within within the day, right after hours of constructing it. So you can see here there. So you could put it, actually they placed it in a what do you call this, in a parking lot in a mall area, just to showcase of its viability here, obviously to create awareness from the different consumers here. So question here is, would you be interested to purchase this type of house? Now obviously, if you're in Japan, where space is limited, obviously these types of construction would be ideal there. So it's easy to make, if it's cost effective or can even reduce the cost, then it would make sense, and there would be a lot of people interested here. And obviously, if you can expand on it, attach just like a Lego, so you can attach more units. If you want to expand it, add more rooms, so maybe you can buy 4 units of those, and then maybe if you're on the second level, another 4 units, and so forth. Obviously, the cost will increase significantly, but again, if they can do that, I think a lot of consumers would be interested to buy. Actually, there's already a big demand for their product. I don't know if it's got something to do with Mr. Elon Musk's notoriety or being involved in the article here, but nonetheless, so if a billionaire is interested in purchasing a tiny home like this one, then it's good for everyone else, right? As long as you get what you paid for, and you can live a modest living in a sense. Anyway, on a related story, so we were talking about Tesla now. Obviously, not everything that comes out of Tesla has been good lately with regards to the issue with their vehicle and so forth. Now, obviously, some consumers have been adamant about it, and I have concerns also. And then there's now even their engineers within the company who are concerned with what Mr. Elon Musk is claiming here regarding the self-driving capability here. So according to businessinsider.com, Tesla engineers were quietly concerned with Elon Musk's early claims about the company's self-driving technology, according to the book published here. So as mentioned here, Elon Musk tends to exaggerate. Now, obviously, to be a visionary, you have to look far beyond what you want to achieve, what can be achieved, and so forth. Now, obviously, pushing for electric vehicles is a big milestone. Kudos for Mr. Elon Musk for trying to achieve that. And they're here now. They're one of the pioneers and one of the great manufacturers in terms of providing electric vehicles to the masses. But obviously, it's not yet polished per se because they're relying on technology here. But the question here is it safe for drivers to drive around, especially those who are testing the limits of what technology can provide here? Anyway, so there have been mentions that Mr. Musk tends to exaggerate the capabilities of Tesla's driver assistance features, and take note, it's an assistance feature, not necessarily full self-driving. That's why the jargon here is very dangerous in terms of mislabeling it, and obviously consumers can easily get confused if this is not communicated properly, and no one's correcting them unless severe cases of accidents, deaths piles up. Then that's the only time government will intervene. But how many deaths would have to occur or accident has to happen before people will get this type of attention? But either way, anyway, the issue here is obviously if you're an engineer, obviously your primary focus is what can you do to ensure the safety of the passengers and even the drivers. Now, based on one of the lead autopilot team, Sterling Anderson, he mentions that they grew increasingly worried about Mr. Musk's tendency to overpromise, according to people familiar with the team's work. Now, obviously, overpromising is not bad in a sense. It depends on the product that you're selling here. Now, obviously, a vehicle that can cost lives if done improperly can be dangerous. Not only you have to worry about the autopilot features, then you have the battery that's lying underneath your vehicle, which, as you have heard in previous reports, there were fires that propped up, and thankfully in one of the articles we've discussed before, there were no harmed individuals, but obviously this caused a fire in that house, and that house went into a flame. What if someone was staying in that house? Whom do you blame here? Is it the irresponsible owner, or should we blame the car manufacturer here for not ensuring that every facet of their vehicle is safe? So no matter how good the driving experience is, if it's not safe, why would people adopt it? That's why there's a low adoption rate from many people, from a combustible engine to a electric power. Even I would be apprehensive. Think about the cell phones, right? The smartphones that we're using, right? Imagine what happened to the Galaxy Note when it caught fire. If you remember the article before, years back, if that were to happen in a vehicle, that could be catastrophic. You just imagine, right? You're in a highway and then it went up went ablaze. There's no warning there. So there has to be, quality control to ensure the safety of all individuals, regardless of the conditions. Since you might be driving it, in cold climate, warm climate, whatever the temperature here. Anyway, it was mentioned also, according to Mr. Anderson, that the system, even with the upgraded features that they're working on right now, won't be able to take total control of the vehicle, which is, again, I go back to the issue here that they should not keep on using the term autopilot or full self-driving, because it's not driving by itself. It can drive on certain conditions, but it still need the assistance of the driver. Without it, it's not fully automated. And I think the jargon that they're using it is very dangerous here. And they mentioned that the autopilot was mainly geared towards highway driving, and this is according to the Tesla engineers here. So again, overpromising. Are there any repercussions here? Again, at the end of the day, Tesla vehicle is also is still a good product compared to other EV vehicles, right? But obviously, we want to make a better product that is safe for everyone to use here. And what's mentioned here is that they are using an array of cameras and sensors to keep the car in its lane and maintain a set of distance to the car ahead. Now, Mr. Andrew was afraid that Musk would declare it fully self-driving, even though it's only level 2. To be totally autonomous, you need level 5 certification there. So even though this was relayed by Mr. John McNeil, head of sales and marketing, still being promoted as a fully self-driving vehicle, which is, kind of iffy if you think about it. And what's interesting here, making it worse, what happened here is recently a 40-year-old person man, Mr. Joshua Brown, was killed when his Tesla Model S ran into a tractor trailer that was crossing the road. So again, it's not yet fully developed because of the machine learning that it takes. Obviously, the software is still updating, so every information that each Tesla vehicle is trying to collate, obviously it goes back to their data center, and they try to assimilate it so that every Tesla vehicle will learn from other experiences, but at the expense of the drivers themselves, right? Unless they can fully polish, guarantee the safety of all individuals, then they shouldn't be mentioning this in the first place. I mean, having lane assist is tremendous, self-parking is tremendous, but asking it to drive by itself, and we've seen in other articles wherein irresponsible individuals are betting that the vehicles could drive itself by intentionally taking a back seat, literally sitting at the back side of the vehicle, and no one is managing the steering wheel of the vehicle. And I think he was caught by the police, and his car was I forgot what's the term, was impounded, so to speak, and then he bought a new one just to prove a point. So there are obviously a lot of loopholes and intricacies with this situation. So question here is, how safe is a vehicle here? Imagine, what if everyone to adopt use an electric vehicle using Tesla here? How safe is it? So similar how when the combustible engine started off, right? There's no safety there, no seatbelt. Took how long before the seatbelt was implemented? So how much accident tragedy were to occur from the time cars were utilized and to the point before safety was made a primary concern here? And take note, you're relying on the company to do its job properly, and they're asking to pay for that service, and it's not even fully formed yet. So there's always a risk and benefit consideration here. What's even interesting here, they mentioned that the autopilot was switched on, and Mr. Brown wasn't paying attention. Again, relying on technology. So imagine that in an airplane, right? A pilot still has to be attentive in terms of flying an aircraft. Otherwise, the companies or the airline companies would have just done away with the pilot, but no one would ride their aircraft if that were the case. That's why they still have to rely on people to manage the aircraft. Same here with the vehicle. And selling it as a self-driving vehicle is a big a big no-no in a sense. And another instance here, way back in 2016, Mr. Musk said that all vehicles would come with hardware that would eventually allow for full autonomy. Now, how far are we here now? So it's now 5 years later. Yeah, we're still decades away in terms of fully realizing that dream. But in terms of his vision, I think I commend him for being able to do that and looking at different aspects, right? In space, in vehicles, even the tunnel boring machine is another. And obviously this didn't go well with their engineers, and they also thought that proposing what he was proposing you know uh, was not possible and unrealistic, and obviously trying to hype up with the Tesla truck that they're trying to market now. Obviously they need to generate revenue and a lot of hype, but either way, at the end of the day, right, there has to be a balance between being a profitable business to being responsible to your society here. And even the higher management in Tesla is not happy about it, given Mr. Musk's tendency to lash out if expectations were not met. Obviously, you need someone to push the company in the right direction. That's why you need to have a visionary like Mr. Musk. But how do you balance it? Obviously, it's not the same if it's a smartphone device like how Mr. Steve Jobs pushes people. But a smartphone, doesn't kill people if you're irresponsible. But there are other ways, right? But a vehicle on its own, if you do not manage it properly, could be catastrophic not just for yourself but for other people as well. And obviously they mentioned here that the timeline was not tenable, and if that they were not able to achieve those goals, that there was someone to be blamed here. And obviously promises struck some as crossing a new line here, and again that's part of the crunch that they're going through, not just in the gaming but in other industries who's trying to be at the top of their industry here. So what's interesting here, Tesla hasn't even completed its own autonomous road trip, and no car company has even come close to it. Now obviously Tesla is far and above compared to the competitors, so we still have to wait and see how it pans out here. Hopefully Mr. Musk is listening, and hopefully they'll make you know the right choice for their consumers, because they have a tremendous product here. And there have been a lot of reports. Even I was watching a podcast with MKHP. He was talking to Mr. Doug Meduro. If you're familiar with his channel, they talk about cars. They talked about the tremendous benefit of using a Tesla vehicle compared to other electric vehicles. So meaning, by far Tesla has been a tremendous vehicle, but obviously it has its flaws. So car removing those flaws would be tremendous to the market, and obviously it would make it easier for other who are apprehensive like me to adopt their technology, right? And hopefully sooner rather than later here. Anyway, on on another company here, in terms of Amazon here now, obviously Amazon has been in hot waters for being doing a pish posh job of taking care of the employees. It's not just the employees but the sellers, and in terms of ruining how their platform is supposed to work, helping businesses and individuals achieve their goals. But in this case, who's profiting here is only Amazon here. What's interesting here, according to businessinsider.com, an Amazon seller, okay, are begging people to delete negative reviews and are offering double refunds if they do. So that's how far this problem has persisted. So if you have a legit business, as long as, assuming it's a legit one, right? So you're trying to sell in their platform, and what's worse here, a lot of companies can do harm by putting fake reviews in your product, right? But let's assume that the product here is reviewed by an actual consumer here or customer, and this is a death sentence for many. That's why companies or sellers here are willing to go to extreme lengths to get that retraction by paying you double the amount, because obviously if you get negative reviews, in my experience, if I see at least even one negative review in your product description, it tells me that a customer was not satisfied. Now if it's a unanimous 5-star rating, you know I tend to believe it more, but it depends still on the number of buyers there. could still be fictitious, more so and not. That's why there has to be some ground rules in terms of how product are evaluated, companies are evaluated, but that's not even going to even Amazon is competing with other sellers here, which is undercutting their business platform, which is not a good way to build relationships with other business, would make them millions or billions of dollars here. Anyway, so it goes on to say here that Amazon sellers are tracking down customers who leave bad reviews. So question here is, how are sellers able to track down those reviewers? Aren't those information supposed to be confidential? Now, again, as you notice, because of this issue, obviously people will always find a way to find a solution, whether it's considered gray area or not. Anyway, even to the point of begging them to remove their post, as much as providing them more money for their refunds. So we here have an example here of an Amazon consumer or customer with Miss Catherine Scott, which bought a cooking oil spray and gave a 4.5 star rating. So not perfect, but there was a problem because it squirted a stream of oil rather than spraying it. So she left a negative review. Little did she know that the company was, keeping an eye on her review and tracked her down and tried to get a retract of her negative review, because obviously a bad review for many companies is a fatal blow. And obviously, not only are you worried with fake reviews, which is one, you have companies like, in this case, even Amazon competing with other resellers. Then you have counterfeit products that's selling in the same market, right? Question is, who do you blame here? Who should be responsible? Should that be the problem of the platform who's managing it? That's why Amazon is in hot waters now with their antitrust issue. But anyway, going back to the main issue here. So obviously, the customer here, Miss Scott, flagged this issue and mentioned this to Amazon. But the question here is, Amazon did nothing until this article, or the reporter here mentioned this to Amazon before the listing was deleted. And again, it's a terrible job of what Amazon is doing here. They use their technology to keep track of your or of your preferences, of your buying behavior with machine learning and everything. But in terms of solving problems like this could have been avoided in the first place if bad actors within their platform were already weeded out from the beginning, which I think they have the resources and the capability. It's just if they wanted to. That's the main question here. And it's not just the Miss Scott who had this same incident. Another customer by the name of Ben Hendon had a similar offer. In this case, left a bad review for a finger split. So offered him a $40 refund for a $17 split. So you can just imagine the surprise if you're one of the reviewers here. I wish we had that same logic here for our local e-commerce platform here. But anyway, so the question here is, how can we solve this problem? And it's, as you notice here, it keeps on growing and growing, and to the point that it's affecting many businesses here. And at the end of the day, this doesn't bode well or benefit the consumers here, because you're left with terrible products, unreliable one, and customers are looking for ways. Obviously, you want to find the cheapest price, but I'm willing to spend more if I know it's more reliable. But the question is, can the platform be relied upon to do their job in the first place? So the issue here is, even according to a former Amazon employee, it was mentioned that the sellers are able to use third-party tools to match customer shipping information with their email addresses. So that's how clever businesses can become. So imagine if this is just a third-party seller. Imagine what Amazon could do if it were actually to use its might and power to solve actual problems within their platform. What's interesting here, an Amazon spokesperson says Amazon provides a great deal of help content, which is not. Provide proactive coaching, yeah, maybe to their business, but not to the sellers, right? Warnings and other assistance to sellers. If that were the case, then there won't be a problem in the first place, right? Anyway, he all goes on to say that to ensure that they remain compliant with our clearly stated, well, obviously your policies it's not effective because they're being violated left and right. And then they have clear policies for both reviewers, no, because they have fake reviewers here. And selling partners that prohibit abuse, well, that's not the case. They're being abused here because if you do not provide a stricter policy for registering in your platform, one would just close their account and create another one and sell again. So unless it's an actual business listed, in whichever country, whether it's in the United States or other parts of the world, then there's no, what do you call this? Uh, there's no liability in a sense, no culpability because the name of the company is just the name. There's no person attached to it, right? And if it's that easy to register, then it's easy enough for them to escape, you know, problems, or in this case, liability, or even being sued by the, by the consumers here. And even the spokesperson who says that the bad actors make up only a tiny fraction. But if it's only a tiny fraction, why is there have been a lot of reports about this? So who's telling the truth here? Who's lying here? That's why, for a spokesperson, rather than address the problem, they keep on saying, safe words so that consumers will be put at ease rather than rest assured doing the right thing for a particular problem. Just like what happened in Gigabyte, right? There's a latest news regarding how Gigabyte PSUs catches fire, and what is Gigabyte doing to solve this problem? Not similar to how EVGA dealt with the buggy issue with their 3090 RTX graphics card, right? They issued an outright replacement for those GPUs. So question is, companies can always come out in front if they are responsible enough, but obviously they're trying to cover their asses so that they spend the least amount of money in these problems and generate more revenue here. But obviously it takes a lot of reporting to get the attention of people, and if more people see these, then obviously hopefully they they will go against what's happening here and not accept what's happening in their platform here. And speaking of bad companies here, so for our last topic here, so we talk about Blizzard's harassment issue with regards of its terrible company culture. Even the CEO is still denying it, but we'll let the courts decide here. Now, according to enemy.com, Blizzard's has lost nearly half of its monthly active users in 4 years. So meaning, has this been brought about with what happened with COVID? One would think that COVID last year would bring about more players in your platform, right? But that's been declining for years now, and it only accelerated the problem with what's happening in their company internally here. So let's take a closer look here. So as mentioned here, back in 2017, they had an average monthly active user of almost 50 million players. It's now down to just 26 million, so almost half. It's not good. So question is, what's happening here? What necessitate this decline? So it's not just a slight blip, but it's a ongoing problem which has been persisting. Question is, what has the company been doing to address this issue? Take note, Blizzard owns one of the most popular games in the world. You have World of Warcraft, you have Overwatch, and Hearthstone. So one would think a lot of players would be playing this, right? And question is, what's the issue here? So let's see here. Where was it? Where was the graph? So you can see here, that's how glaring the issue here is. So if you can see it closely, so for as far back as you can see here, it's been growing, not growing, steadily declining over the past few years, right? Questioning what's happening here. I mean, the game is still, a popular game here, so there must be something more underlying to it that it enabled players to despise it. So something must be amiss here. Is it the game, or is it the experience here, right? It was mentioned here that despite the World of Warcraft, the expansion of Shadowlands becoming the fastest selling PC game of all time, it didn't do anything to turn it around. Now, there was no mention, okay? There was no mention that what's the reason behind the massive drop, but one would think that in terms of, if you delivered a poor gaming experience, users tend to be, very particular. Obviously, uh, doing justice to every gamer, like, what happened with Cyberpunk 2077, right? They built up a lot of hype, but the game is terrible on launch. So question is, should we reward those companies for delivering a terrible game in the first place? Now, obviously, you don't blame the developers, but who makes the decision? So the company is affected here. Same goes here. Even if it's a popular game, if there is a problem in terms of, how they manage customer service, in terms of how they deal with their gaming community and so forth, well, it's going to persist here, and it doesn't benefit the gamers, it doesn't benefit the gaming community, and even the company here in Activision. That's why you see the result speaks for themselves. Now, can this, be turned around? There's still 20 some million, almost 30 million people still playing their games. Question is, will you let it persist, or will you try to find a solution to curb that problem, right? You've already lost almost half of your monthly active users now. They can still stay pat and do nothing, or, you know, let other companies take over, like Fortnite or even PUBG, to be a more popular game than what they have here. So question here is, what will happen? Only time will tell. So we have to wait and see what Activision will do here, or Blizzard will do in the near future here. Because my concern here is, it's got to do more with, management here, as a reflection of what's happening internally here, and obviously in terms of how they manage the business and how they prioritize the generating revenue at the expense of the developers, at the expense of the consumer, which is their primary bread and butter, because without the gaming community, no one would be buying or playing their game, right? And for the game to be as popular now as it was before, you need a gaming community to continue to play your game. What do you call this? To extend the lifespan of a game. Similar how Skyrim was popular, right? Before it was bought off by Microsoft. So the community is a little bit pissed off if you're in the PS PlayStation community here. But either way, so the point here is, if you notice, all of the companies we'll be talking about, they have one underlying issue. They're trying to throw the problem under the rug, and if it persists, obviously it would be detrimental to the company. Well, I'm hoping they could fix the problem, because obviously at the end of the day, if they can fix the problem, it would, automatically change the narrative, and it would automatically improve their business performance in terms of their bottom line here, right? That's why other companies, like, I applaud EVGA, if they're able to correct, if there's a problem, even if it's still not their fault, right? Then they do the right thing, and customers will see it, and customers will continue to patronize those products here, right? But for other companies like this one, why would I waste my money in those companies that, do this, shady deals and so forth? Now, I'm saying they're the only ones who do this types of practice, but, nonetheless, we want companies to have a higher standing, higher expectation here, so to speak. Anyway, that concludes our business update. Thanks again for watching. Come back again on Wednesday for more business update. If you enjoy these types of content, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to help support this channel. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Take care.